ProWrestlingTees.com/616entertainment is the home of all official 616 Entertainment merchandise. Pick up a shirt, you'll be glad you did. This video is also brought to you in part by the Patreon producers, without whom content like this would not be possible. In 2021, there's one mainline WWE video game franchise. The 2K games drop every year like clockwork. Well, almost every year. And despite their most recent catastrophic release, let's be honest, this franchise is pretty damn good. There are corners of the internet that would have you believe that these games are garbage. They're terrible. They're the worst wrestling games ever, but come on. They're just a different style than what we grew up with, you know? You don't have to like it, but to claim they're all trash, it's just unrealistic. What is annoying though, and I'll give you this, is the lack of variety. And I'm not talking about, we used to have WCW, WWF, and ECW games all on the shelves at the same time. I'm talking about the early to mid 2000s, where there were 3 distinct WWE video game franchises exclusive to 3 different consoles. It was a hell of a time. Hey DanDans, welcome to another installment of Triangle X Squared Circle, the Wrestling Game Retrospective Series. Last time out we covered 1995's WWF WrestleMania the arcade game, but I swerved you a little bit, and I snuck in some coverage of its sequel, WWF In Your House, as well. Today's episode is advertised as WWE WrestleMania 19 on the GameCube, but...
Warning, swerve alert. Swerve alert. You're about to be swerved.
I'm swerving you sons of bitch again. How the hell would we talk about WrestleMania 19 and not talk about its predecessor, WWF WrestleMania X8? I hope you're strapped in, because it's time for another doubleheader, DanDans. WWE WrestleMania X8, or WrestleMania 18, was the first World Wrestling Entertainment offering to hit Nintendo's fancy new tiny disc console, the GameCube, in June of 2002. What the hell was the whole X7 and X8 thing about?
I don't know!
For years, the rulers of the wrestling space on the Nintendo side of things were the Aki Corporation. You know these guys. They brought us everything from WCW NWO Revenge to WWF No Mercy. To say they've got a bit of a legacy behind them would be an understatement. But as beloved as Aki were, things didn't really work out for them in the mainstream wrestling scene beyond the November 2000 release of No Mercy. It was after the abysmal launch of WCW Backstage Assault that EA said, you know what? We need the best of the best to right this ship. EA reached an agreement to publish WCW Mayhem 2, which would be developed by Aki. This could have been amazing. We could be talking about this game in the same light that we talk about the other Aki classics, but it was not to be. WCW getting scooped up and shelved by the WWF in March of 2001 caused Aki to call an audible, and what was initially WCW Mayhem 2 would eventually see the light of day as Def Jam Vendetta. You can learn all about this in the Def Jam Vendetta episode from season 1 of this show. The link is in the description. Why am I telling you all this? Well, because it was a big deal that there was a new WWF game coming to a Nintendo console and Aki weren't behind the wheel. For WrestleMania X8, the keys would be given to Yuke's, the very same developer behind the SmackDown series on the PlayStation. And don't get confused, I see people make this mistake all the time. THQ were a publisher, Yuke's were a developer. Yuke's made the game, THQ put it out. Got it? And while that sounds pretty cool, I mean, the SmackDown games are awesome, what the hell would be the point of doing another series exclusive to a different console just for it to feel exactly the same? Here's where some big decisions were made. THQ didn't want a SmackDown clone. WrestleMania X8 was intended to feel like its own unique beast. And while there was some overlap between team members on SmackDown and WrestleMania, it was not the exact same lineup by any means. As a matter of fact, THQ actually poached several Aki Corporation employees to put directly on the WrestleMania development team in order to ensure it carried its own identity. They went out of their way to make this GameCube debut feel special, and I'll be damned if they didn't accomplish just that. What's interesting about WrestleMania X8 is that the box art says WWE, but all across the inside of the actual game, we've got WWF logos galore. That's because this game was released just a few short months after the World Wildlife Fund took down the World Wrestling Federation in court, and the WWE name change took hold. It was too late to go into the game and change everything, so they just changed the box art. Here's the original and the updated version side by side. The PAL release updated the cover art once again, replacing the recently disenfranchised Stone Cold Steve Austin with The Rock. What a journey simply surrounding the cover art, right? Gameplay-wise, WrestleMania X8 found a sweet spot between being its own game and taking inspiration from the SmackDown titles, which is not a bad thing. The grappling mechanics are admittedly pretty limited, with only 5 front and rear grappling moves per character. Honestly, No Mercy had 20 front grapples per character, and that came out several years prior on a previous generation, so this could have been a little deeper for sure. The roster was awesome, as this was the first WWE release to feature the massive influx of former WCW and ECW talent. We've got debuts here the likes of Booker T, Rob Van Dam, the Hurricane, and more. But how about the fucking NWO? This was the first time Scott Hall had appeared in a WWE game since 1995, the first for Kevin Nash since 1994, and the first for Hulk Hogan since 1993. The band was back together in a big way, and it was awesome to be able to play as the original members of what is arguably the greatest faction in the history of pro wrestling once again. Outside of a super deep exhibition mode complete with gimmick matches like TLC, Steel Cage, and more, there are also several different game modes open to the player right from the start. Path of a Champion allows you to basically run through an arcade ladder, Mortal Kombat style, until you win whichever title you were going after. Battle of the Belts, though, is where things get a little more interesting. If you're a weirdo belt mark like I am, maybe you know what I'm going to talk about here. Look at some of these belts. We've got The Rock's custom Brahma Bowl title, which never even made it to TV. We've got Austin's short-lived Smoking Skull belt. But what's this? That's a knockoff of the WCW World title. That's the ECW TV Championship. That's the old IWGP belt. That's the AWA World Championship. This was so cool to me as a belt mark. There are 51 of these things on this list, man, and the deeper you go, the deeper the references go. Super cool. But as you might imagine, there are a few less than stellar and downright strange quirks to this game. Some of the wrestlers' bodies are comically out of scale. This isn't the super exaggerated style of Legends of Wrestling. I cannot explain why Rob Van Dam looks the way he does. There's absolutely no animation for breaking the announce table. It's up 1 second, and the next, it's not. The normal wooden tables are fucking enormous. These things look like they were borrowed from the Last Supper. And what the fuck is with how the tables break in the corner? In real life, you set the thing up and you break through it. It crumbles. In WrestleMania X8, breaking a table in the corner sends the thing careening into the sky like it was spring-loaded. Smash! Hilarious. Quirks aside, when it came down to it, WrestleMania X8 did the damn thing. It reviewed fairly well, it sold fairly well, and it proved to be a great starting point for WWE and THQ's new venture on the Nintendo GameCube. The foundation had been set for this new franchise, and now it was time for the developers to iterate on their original ideas, improve existing framework, and do the best they could to deliver a top-tier sequel. This is where the advertised portion of this episode begins, DanDans. It's time to talk about WWE WrestleMania 19. Man, 2003 was a hell of a time, wasn't it? World Wrestling Entertainment had officially shed the skin of the Attitude Era, ushering in the new generation of stars in a time period that has since been tagged as the Ruthless Aggression Era. Stone Cold Steve Austin had just recently retired from in-ring competition. The Rock's appearances are sporadic at best, as Hollywood is calling his name more and more frequently. Filling those shoes would be no small task, but it had to be done. Fresh blood like Brock Lesnar, John Cena, Randy Orton, Batista, and more exploded onto the scene. Faces from another land like Goldberg and Scott Steiner made their mark in the WWE World title picture. Kane lost his mask. Jeff Hardy was released from the company while Matt Hardy thrived as a single star. To call it a period of flux would be an understatement. It was just before fall in 2003 that WWE WrestleMania 19, still exclusive to the Nintendo GameCube, would hit store shelves. We know because we've covered it that WrestleMania X8 was pretty cool, but how would the sequel fare? Well, the tiny little GameCube disc is emblazoned with the big gold belt, and I gotta believe that's a good sign. Spoilers, it is indeed a good sign. WrestleMania 19 looks way better than 18 did, and that's saying something, as 18 had a unique style of its own. But side by side, there's no debate. The wrestlers' bodies look so much more detailed, from musculature to skin tone, even shape. To be honest, I knew this game was going to look great before it even shipped. Those first screenshots that came out, I think we were all like, holy shit, right? Across the board, graphically, this game was aces. I mean, they do have Stacy Keibler looking kind of fucked up in the Shop Zone menu. She moves like a creature from a horror movie, and it's a little unsettling. Stacy Keibler is one of the hottest wrestling babes of all time, man. This was a botch job. But aside from Stacy, can we just take a second to appreciate some of the cool little tidbits from this game? How about the justice that was done in the design of the Hell in a Cell cage? This may be the closest to perfect cell design we've ever gotten. The scale of it is dead on. The buckling of the roof's panels before the crash, the hanging chain link after the ceiling gives way, it's fantastic. Not to mention, you can climb the walls of the cell on the inside, which is cool. And you can get weapons from under the ring during a cell match, something that WrestleMania's sister series, SmackDown, did not allow. And if we're putting over match types at the moment, let me show some love to the Royal Rumble. I promise I won't keep bringing up SmackDown, but from the very first release, all the way up to 2003's Here Comes the Pain, their Royal Rumble match was barely, and I mean barely, changed at all. WrestleMania 19 shows up and says, hey, you're not just gonna Irish whip every single guy right over the top as soon as they get in the ring. You gotta toss them over and then beat the ever-living shit out of them and drain their meter before they actually get eliminated. This made Rumble matches longer, more realistic, and overall, more fun. A great improvement. This is the part where when I'm covering practically any other wrestling game that released after 1999, we'd be talking about the season mode. Well, WrestleMania 19 doesn't have a season mode. In its place is Revenge Mode. What the hell is Revenge Mode? Well, I'm gonna tell you. Vince McMahon has had enough of your shit. He's had you beaten down, dragged around, and now you're fired. Security guards literally throw you out the back exit to the building, right at the feet of the awaiting Stephanie McMahon.
Hey, why the fuck was Stephanie all dressed up like that to stand in the parking lot of a sports arena at 10 o'clock at night? Well, because she's got big plans. Big plans that are gonna shape the outline of Revenge Mode. So did Stephanie know the fucking player was getting fired that night and that's why she was standing out there? Or has she been standing in the parking lot of every fucking arena for the past however knows long, waiting for somebody to get fired so she could tell her plan to them? Well, the plot of Revenge Mode is, Stephanie McMahon, listen, will you shut the fuck up and let us design the game?
Stephanie's got a plan. She wants to take down her dad by ruining WrestleMania. And she's using us to do her bidding. What kind of bidding, you ask? The first mission, yes, mission, there are no wrestling matches, just missions, has us traveling to the work site where the WrestleMania arena is being built. And what are we doing here? Stealing blueprints? Nope. Our goal is to literally kill all of the construction workers who have been employed to get the arena up in time for the show. You can call me dramatic, you can argue with me all you want. We are killing these poor fuckers by throwing them off this ledge. They're not falling 6 feet and twisting their ankle. We're so goddamn high in the air that we don't even see the impact of their bodies exploding on the asphalt below. Those guys are dead. And for what? What is all this violence for? These guys aren't even WWE employees. Vince McMahon's not going to feel this in his pocketbook. These are union guys with families at home. They're just doing their job trying to build this arena that's only going to host one show. Because that's how WWE handles WrestleMania, right? They never rent out existing buildings. They always pay $650 million a year to have their own version of AT&T Stadium built that they use one time and then it's demolished. That's what they always do, right? But whatever. So we killed a bunch of innocent people and got away with it. Now what? Oh, now we're going to a shopping mall to kill some unrelated security guards. Hey man, the win condition says to make them bleed and knock them out. But I've been making sure all of these dudes are drowned in the mall fountain.
Maybe I'm the problem.
This is fucking ridiculous. Look at this. Stone Cold Steve Austin in full underwear-ass ring gear, handing out cans of whoop-ass on mall cops. This looks like a scene from Tim and Eric's $1 billion movie. But there's more to revenge mode than just mass murder in public places. Outside of killing construction workers and mall security, we're also tasked with vandalism in the shape of destroying cars, killing dock workers by throwing them off a platform in the middle of the ocean. No, that's just more murder. Fuck. Don't get me started on the platforming involved here. Yes, the platforming. Climbing scaffolding, swinging across, hanging, rotating chains in a parking garage that apparently has an expressway passing through it? I don't know. This whole mode is fucked up beyond belief. In my time with it, I experienced several visual and auditory glitches.
You will be compensated with cash for each objective you complete.
And I'm not kidding. After hitting the button to wrap up the recording of this gameplay, my GameCube stopped working. I needed to capture some more footage from WrestleMania 18, and my console 100% told me to go fuck myself. That's revenge mode, man. I'm not gonna lie to you and say that revenge mode had no upside, though. I don't know about you guys, but my friends and I, we love to have fatal four-way matches on the harbor stage. Climbing that big-ass chain all the way up to the top, smashing through the floor and falling into the ocean. That shit was fun. It may have been nonsensical and ridiculous, but this is wrestling. It's all nonsensical and ridiculous. What isn't nonsensical and ridiculous is the return of the strong grapple. There's absolutely nothing wrong with taking that Aki formula and bringing it into other wrestling games. The gameplay is way slower than WrestleMania 18 though, I must say. Slower than the SmackDown games as well. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. I don't really mind the more methodical pace. This is the team trying to find that balance between arcade and realism, you know? What I do have issues with, though, is the fact that fairly often, you're gonna reach out and grapple at no one simply because you're not perfectly lined up with your opponent. That's annoying, as is the mechanic that allows any single movement to interrupt a grapple move. If you're standing near someone doing a suplex, you're taking a bump, even though you had nothing to do with the move. You're just in the way. Can we not do that? It's beyond annoying. And none of the GameCube WWE games fix this. Am I alone in hating this? Let me know in the comments. I want to talk about some of the weird shit in this game that sticks out in my mind like a sore thumb. I can and have gone years without playing this game, and these memories never left me. First of all, the referee, which, side note, that might look like Earl Hebner, but it's not. Because if WWE admitted it was, they'd have to pay him. And WWE does not like to treat their employees that well. Just ask 30-year ref Mike Chioda, who WWE fired in the middle of a pandemic as a cost-cutting measure.
Like, you're tied down at WWE. You couldn't get royalties off of video games because they wouldn't let us in the video games.
Yeah.
They let me in for a little while. And then once I was talking about, okay, where's my royalties? They took me right out of the game.
This referee will follow you to the ends of the earth. Come hell or high water, that pinfall is getting counted. He'll even scale the fucking Hell in a Cell cage. He'll bump through the ceiling with you. And guess what he does then? He counts to 3 like a fucking professional. Bless you, nameless, royalty-free referee. Attention to detail is something that I feel should always be commended. And let me tell you, I was pleasantly surprised when I put together a Dudley Boyz vs. Booker T and Goldust tag match, only to see Booker and Goldust come out together in all their odd couple glory. Amazing. And in a world of knockoff music for the NWO, Randy Orton, which this one is super odd, seeing as though Motorhead made the Evolution song specifically for WWE, Booker T and others, it's crazy that they licensed Voodoo Child from Jimi Hendrix for Hulk Hogan. What the hell is that about? You can pay the Hendrix estate but not dip into your own catalog for the Evolution song? Someone do some digging on this for me. I need answers. You know what else I need? I need to tell you about the King of the Ring mode. Holy hell. You can go through and set the bracket perfectly how you like it if you want to, but my god is it entertaining to sit back and just roll with the AI picks. Round 1, we've got Goldberg versus Dawn Marie. You better believe Dawn Marie's going over clean. What are you, nuts? Next up, The Rock versus Victoria. And we've got a new People's Champ. Get a group of friends around and place bets on one of these things. It's incredible. What really chaps my ass though is that King of the Ring mode is how you determine champions. You start by choosing the title that's going to be on the line. But when it's over, There's no belt! The champ doesn't wear it to the ring. The winner doesn't celebrate with it. Ugh, you know this is a pet peeve of mine. As are disappearing tables. WrestleMania X8's announced tables didn't disappear after you broke them. And no answer you can possibly give me as to why they vanish in 19 will suffice. I hate this. But let's counteract that hate with a little bit of love. This roster is a fucking chef's kiss. I adore the 2003 WWE lineup, man. So many guys and girls that I have great memories with are here. I do wonder, though, why is Goldberg stuck all the way down there at the very bottom? Look at the top row. It's all main eventers. So why isn't Goldberg up there? I've tried to dissect this layout and make sense of it, and there are some connections. For instance, why are Austin and Rock at the beginning? Why isn't this in alphabetical order? Well, I don't have an answer for why it's not in alphabetical order, but Rock and Austin did face each other at WrestleMania 19. Jericho and Shawn Michaels also went one-on-one at WrestleMania 19, so we may have a pattern here. Angle and Lesnar, another one. But Triple H, he faced Booker T, and they're not side by side. Hogan's all by himself as well when he should be next to Vince McMahon. RVD and Kane are a tag team, so that makes sense. As were the Dudleys. Okay, we're back. Hurricane and Goldust throw it off, though. I mean, Edge and Ray were teammates. Big Show's alone. Chris Benoit killed his family. I don't know. I'm not sure. I thought maybe we could decipher this thing, but there just seems to be no real rhyme or reason. WrestleMania 19 is a hell of a game. Visually, it's big time. In the gameplay department, it's no slouch. You're bound to stay entertained by the sheer variety of gimmick matches and revenge mode, man. What a strange trip into the mind of someone, I don't know. But with all the positives I've pointed out in this retrospective, as well as the strange little quirks, how did WrestleMania do with critics? How well did it perform sales-wise? The event that the game takes its name from is regarded as one of the greatest WrestleManias of all time, so this adaptation better be good, right? Well, luckily for Ukes and THQ, it was good. The review scores were favorable across the board. It was even nominated for Best Fighting Game at the 2003 Spike Video Game Awards, an award that was won by SmackDown Here Comes the Pain, so either way, Ukes and THQ were living large. And while WrestleMania 19's success at retail continued to pave the way for future WWE branded titles exclusive to Nintendo's GameCube, subsequent releases would stray from the WrestleMania name in favor of Day of Reckoning. But that's another story for another time. You know those certain friends you have growing up where you think, man, 20 years from now, we're still gonna be super close. I had a friend like that. I was a PlayStation guy, he was a Nintendo guy. We were both huge wrestling fans back in the day, and he happened to have a GameCube. WrestleMania 19 is the last game that my friend Bobby Morrissey and I bonded over. Not everything lasts. In 2004, I moved away from the neighborhood I grew up in, and we lost touch. I mean, we lost touch shockingly fast. It was pretty disappointing. But even though we didn't remain super close and we haven't spoken in years, that doesn't mean that those memories I have were for nothing. I'll always think of WrestleMania 19, I'll think of my buddy Bobby Morrissey, and I'm going to be transported back in time, sitting on his floor during a sleepover with a GameCube controller in my hands. And that is awesome. DanDans, this was my Triangle X Squared Circle retrospective on WWE WrestleMania 19. And WWF WrestleMania 18 as well, because I kind of snuck that shit in there. Next time out, we're doing it big. We're doing it extreme. We're going in-depth on both ECW video games. That's Hardcore Revolution and Anarchy Rules. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but this season is fucking big time. Until then, I love you, DanDans. Thank you for watching.
Well, the plot of Revenge Mode is, Stephanie McMahon, listen, will you shut the fuck up and let us design the game?
That's totally just Bruce Pritchard's Jerry Jarrett impression.